So hello fellow Earthlings, this is Earthling 6455463728, and I think that Joe Rogan is being a hypocrite when he says that people shouldn't read the comments. If you listen to Joe Rogan, you probably have heard him say this a number of times, that you shouldn't read the comments. To whoever comes as a guest on his show, that's a standard thing that he tells them: don't read the comments. So if this is a normal thing that Joe Rogan says, why am I bothering to bring it up now? Well, Lex Fridman was on his show, and Lex Fridman was telling him about this challenge that he took up, and he was talking to people online, and some of them had different opinions, and I guess it bothered him. So Joe Rogan was telling him, hey, don't read the comments. At the end of it, Joe Rogan's final argument is like, listen, you're not telling me that you're getting anything positive out of reading these comments. So why are you doing it? All you're doing is resisting what I'm suggesting to you, and that doesn't make any sense. The problem is that Lex had given him some positive reasons for why he read the comments. And I don't know why Lex got stuck in his head and he didn't want to challenge Joe about this, to say, yeah, there are many people and I interact with these many people and I have lots of positive experiences. And yes, a very, very small minority of these are negative. And yes, they may stick with me more than, the positive comments. But at the same time, I don't think that I should deny myself all of the benefits of these positive interactions that I can have, just because a few negative comments are going to potentially bother me. And I think at the end of the day, that's at the heart of the reason why you should read the comments. You read the comments to talk and discuss with people, positive things with people. And Joe readily admits that it's a very, very, 1% of the people are negative, right? And I completely understand that 1% can keep you up, in the middle of the night, looking at the wall, asking yourself, these questions that hurt your feelings and all of this other stuff. I was calling 100 people a day, right? Just to collect email addresses to send people information about my business. And out of those 100 calls, I think roughly half of them would be answered, and out of those half that were answered, maybe 2 or 3 people would potentially be rude, or they might say no or something like that. And let me tell you, yeah, absolutely, 100%, I was dreading with every single call that I made that 1, 2, or maximum 3 people who might be rude or might say no. And I'm thinking of ways to potentially, give them a wisecrack and, put them in their place and whatever else. But I had to call, there was no reason to be ridiculous and decide that I wasn't going to call anybody because a couple of people were going to be mean potentially, And I don't understand how Joe is the kind of person who tells you, and like he told Miley Cyrus, you need to push yourself, you need to exercise, you need to feed your body and your mind, and you need to stress yourself, you need to put yourself out there. And he goes up and sometimes he bombs on stage as a comedian, but he would never think to quit comedy, right? I guess Joe's argument might be that I'm not getting any benefit from being in the comments. But you are, Joe. That's exactly what Lex was talking about. There are benefits to looking at talking and interacting with people in the comments. And you are denying yourself that because you can't mold yourself into the type of person who can throw off those 1 or 2 percent negative interactions. So you can't steel yourself and you can't make your mind stronger so that you don't have to think about those bad interactions. And that's what you're suggesting to everybody else. that they treat themselves like babies who can't take negative feedback. The thing about the negative feedback potentially is that some of the things that people might say are, are buttons. Whatever it is that we are particularly vulnerable about, those are the things that people say that get to us. And, people go to therapists for that. Or in therapy, one of the things that you can do, I can't remember the name of the treatment that you use, is that you go over a traumatic thing over and over and over and over and over in your head to the point where it's no longer traumatic because it's boring. And I can't understand how Joe will push his body, and he will push his comedy, and he will go out there and he will bomb, and then he will completely drop the ball, put up his hands and say, don't read the comments. That's it. There's nothing positive about them. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever, Joe. Yeah, people are going to say mean things, but potentially some of those mean things are going to be true. They might, and this is another thing. Joe, he wouldn't be rude. Like if somebody is not a friend of his and they're overweight, he might not tell them anything that, hey, you may be putting on too much weight and maybe it's not good for you. But if it's a friend of his, or somebody is close to him, he finds it's perfectly okay to quote unquote fat shame the person and tell him, hey, you should probably work out and do whatever and do this. And okay, this is a friend telling you this, but what about if it's not a friend? It's still true, right? And Mike Tyson was on his show. I don't know how much Joe aligns with Mike Tyson's idea of the topic, but Mike Tyson says that he went to a place, he saw somebody who he used to know when he was younger, and the person basically told him, Mike, what are you doing? How are you getting so fat? This isn't good at all. And he says he felt so embarrassed. There were all these people around, but at the end of the day, if somebody knew that he was looking bad and they didn't tell him anything, he wouldn't want to be friends with that person anymore. If somebody was willing to just leave it alone and not tell him the right thing, Mike Tyson basically was like, I wouldn't want to be friends with that person anymore if I realized that that's what happened. And I don't know. I find it, there are all kinds of, I put it in a particular way. Everything that we think and that we do is a habit. And it seems in life that there are no incompatible habits that can not coexist in the same mind. And Joe is he totally agrees with Mike, at least from Mike's perspective, that yeah, your friend should tell you if you're not looking as good as you should look, right? And he agrees. I just don't understand, Joe. That said, let me just interject here and say, of course, that I have been a hypocrite, and I think that I would want to know the truth about anything, whether it's coming from a stranger or a friend, and it will hurt. It will hurt, and I might feel like being mean to that particular person for telling me the truth, but I would prefer to be told, hey, you're dragging a piece of toilet paper on your shoe. Quickly, just get it out of the way, than the person doesn't tell me. Because I've done that for people. I have told people, hey, I think you might have a cavity or something because there's a certain amount of odor that I'm detecting that might mean that you have a cavity. And the person is like, yeah, I do have a cavity. That's true. I'm gonna go to the dentist sooner or later to get that fixed. There's another point that I wanted to call out Joe on. Not that Joe will ever hear this, but Joe was talking to Edward Snowden, and he was basically saying that, hey, it's kind of messed up for YouTube and Twitter to deplatform people. I don't think that's cool at all. And he was like, yeah, there's freedom of speech, blah, blah, blah. But in the same, like not even like 2 minutes later, he's like, and yeah, these gay people, they went around looking for people to make a cake for them. And then they found this people who didn't want to make the cake. And, they went and sued them. I'm sure many of us have heard of these cake makers who did not want to make a cake for this gay couple because they didn't believe in gay marriage. And I don't know that Joe doesn't understand that both of those are the same thing. When you make a cake for a gay couple, they aren't asking you to do something. They're not asking you to marry them. They're not asking you to agree with what they say. They're asking you to make a cake. That's it. That's what they're asking you to do. They're asking you to make a cake. The end. And on the cake, maybe you have to put 2 guys' names. That's it. The idea that they get to say, no, we don't agree with gay marriage, so we don't want to make a cake. It's kind of like, hey, we don't agree with what you're saying, so we don't want you on our platform. And on the one hand, Joe is like, it's not fair that you can deplatform somebody for saying something that you don't like. And it's not fair that you can not make a cake for somebody because they're going to use it for something that you don't like. And there's a lot of people who don't seem to be able to make the connection between the two things. Like let's say, for example, somebody does not like Jewish people, or they don't like Hispanic people, and a Hispanic person comes and they say that they want a cake, and you're like, well, I don't want to support Hispanic people, so I'm not going to make a cake for you. I don't want to support Jewish people and their bar mitzvahs or whatever it is, so I'm not going to make a cake for you. That's the same thing. You're not supposed to discriminate against other people in your business as long as they're not asking you to do something illegal. Otherwise, then anybody could discriminate with respect to housing. That's a big thing, right? Oh, I don't want to rent my house to you because I don't like people of this particular race, or I don't like people of this particular gender, or I don't like people who believe in this. So I'm not going to rent my place to you, or I'm not going to sell you my house. That's illegal. That's what, Martin Luther King fought against. But when it comes to, small businesses, Joe is like, yeah, they should have a right to do what they want to do. But when it comes to big businesses, Joe is like, no, they shouldn't have a right to do what they want to do. Yeah, I am a hypocrite, and, Joe's business is to entertain. It's not really to necessarily, destroy the incompatibilities between what he says, because he just really says them over and over and over and over and over. And there's no growth that I can say that I see with Joe. I really, I'm not a big fan of his comedy. I didn't even realize that he was a comedian, actually. I thought he was the host of Fear Factor and he was an actor and whatever else. I've seen some of his comedy and I don't love it exactly, but I guess he's a decent person. It's just he's not somebody that I would use as a role model, I suppose, because at the end of the day, he's not really trying too hard to make sense. I don't know. Anyway, guys, that's it. Kind of long. Peace.